wanted to get your feeling. I know it's sort of fairly recent for you guys as well that you've just sort of gone through the graduate recruitment process. But I'd just love to get your sort of view on it in terms of how does it feel to go through that process, and what does a typical graduate process feel like?
Um, from my experience, it's usually 4 stages, 4 to 5 stages, depending on the company that you're with. And after the screening of your CV, I wouldn't consider that a stage because I think it's with everything. You first apply with your CV, and then hopefully, when you get that next email that you cannot do the psychometric tests, afterwards, you usually have interview that you're talking to a screen with pre-recorded questions. Hopefully, you're not nervous because it's this question that you saw on the screen and you get a few minutes to answer it. And you always have a retry if you felt like the first time wasn't working out. Followed by, I would say now, depending on the company that you're with, either a telephone call from someone with the company or face to face via Teams or any other platform that they use. If you make it through all these stages, you now get to the eventful assessment center, which could be a day or two, and that requires a lot of your effort and time and setting apart time for preparations for that. So I think, yeah, mind you, it's not in 1 week, it's months and months of recruitment.
There's definitely parts that you start to kind of go down a funnel almost. So most applications I made, you're making a large amount of applications to start with, and you kind of get lost in them because you're applying to so many different companies. They're all looking for very similar kind of soft skills within yourself. And it then starts to narrow down to what you need to know more and more about the company. And I think the time you invest, the longer you go down the process of application, really increases proportionally. It's a long process, but I think when you finally get a job, it's very rewarding.
And if you had advice for any sort of current graduates out there looking to apply to any graduate program out there, what would it be? And I know, a lot of the time people tell you, try to be your authentic self, but at the same time, it's like, driving a car and taking the test. You're always doing your 110% best version in terms of driving that car. But what advice would you give then to other graduates out there?
I think the best advice I would be is research. Like research the type of company that you want to work for, the type of role that you want to work for, because as you're saying, being authentic self, you would now apply for a job that you actually desire to be part of. And as you go through the recruitment process, it's way much easier because you really enjoy and you're trying to get this job, and it's not as, I would say, troublesome, because if you're trying to tick something off a box, it would be now more painful as you're going through the process. But now it's like if you do the research and realize, okay, this is the company, this is the type of culture that I want to have, this is the type of skills that I need to have for this job. Do I meet this? Is this the type of job? Because sometimes you even find out as you're applying for the job, actually, the questions that they're asking me and the things that I align to are not really fitting in together. I'd rather now go look for a different job. So it's like my biggest advice would be research. Like, that's the main part.
I'd second what Grace said. Also, you've got to be pretty tenacious. Um, like I touched on earlier, it's a tough experience, and you can really get really invested in stuff, and try not to let that hurt you. And even if you're not getting feedback, you can understand within yourself, okay, did I really give 100% of that? I know you say you always give 110%, but all of us are guilty of occasionally falling off the mark a little bit. So really making sure that you're reassessing your application, and was that really what I should be showing the skills in myself. And sometimes it's not down to you. Sometimes it is just on the day there was other people that they wanted, and it's not actually that you were wrong. And I remember at university I had an assessment center. I got onto the assessment center and got told, no, you haven't got the job, with no feedback. And again, I spoke to the recruiting people at university and asked for some advice, and they just said to me, probably wasn't actually that you were doing much wrong. It's just that there were other people on the day that they preferred. So kind of just keep going. As long as you're confident in what you're doing, just keep going.
So part of this, graduate programs and their sort of recruitment process is that there's multiple stages, and each stage is linked to the previous stage. If you're successful on the first stage, you go to the next stage, so to speak. So how do you pass that first gate? How do you open the doors up, pass the first stage, and move on to the second?
So I would say it's a matter of practice in some regard. It's understanding what a company is looking for and showing how you resonate with those skills. Not just going in blindly with I'm this, but firstly making sure that you do resonate with them and that this is the right job for you. And then secondly, showing clearly how you resonate to them. Because even if you might feel that you resonate to them, it might be you can't just say directly, I resonate to these skills. You've got to show examples and show where you fit in with the company culture. Anything to add to that, Chris?
I think well, can totally agree with you with that. So considering that you're just a fresh graduate, you don't really, I would say, have a lot in your bag to really showcase. But like throughout your, I would say, university or your spare time, you will able to do other events and activities that you will be able to showcase during that first stage. It's really, I would say, a skill that we're all learning, and usually universities always have like career guidances, as you mentioned before, that can help you to be like, how can I best stand out for this? And it's like really, I'd say, resonating with the job and being like, I really want this job and I think I have the skills to demonstrate it. And you will be able to think from your previous experiences to be like, from this I know I can achieve this job. So I think
So out of both your amazing personalities, what do you think resonated the most in your first steps? What made you so unique from everyone else? What do you think it was?
It's a good question. I think probably my determination. The fact that I felt like I could lead. I really felt like I could resonate with leading. I had luckily had opportunities already to lead companies and lead teams and businesses, and I think that was something firstly that Hilton offered to me as an opportunity. I saw it as a great opportunity to kind of hone these skills, and it's something I also knew I enjoyed doing. So I knew it was worthwhile, kind of pursuing a career in that aspect. So I think for me it was really the leadership skills and wanting to be able to show that I could lead well, and also learn more about leading.
I think for me it was my willingness to learn. Like I think I really showcased that. I hope I did because I'm here now. It was that thing, my desire to always want to learn more. I think I mentioned it more than several times. I was very interested in the fact that this was a program that allowed me to learn on the job, not just push me and do the work, but actually learn what I'm actually doing, better understand it. So I really hoped I showcased that very well. So that's what something I think resonated best for me.
So we've spoken a bit about the first stages of the graduate recruitment process. Now let's talk a bit about the back end of it. Um, how do you prepare for the final assessments? You know, when you're going to be with other people, other graduates, all looking for the same opportunity. You know, how do you prepare? Do you look into the mirror and hype yourself up? Do you start singing songs, or how do you do it?
From my experience, I think, okay, with also the format that it was online. So first of all, I think I had to make sure I had good internet to make sure that I wasn't losing connection. So I think that was my first step. I don't know how helpful that can be with someone else, but trust me, good internet makes or breaks this experience for you because that removes, I think, a lot of nerves rather than having to go to the assessment center. You now have this greater hurdle trying to find the good camera angle so that they can see you without having a glare behind you. And I would say being kind to yourself. You can do this. You've gotten yourself this far. You have the skills that they're looking for. Now they just want to for you to showcase those skills now in a practical sense because they give you activities of the skills that they showed you in the job description. Like we want this type of person and this type. Now you've been given the opportunity to showcase that you, when you're applying, you had these skills. You've just been given the platform to now present those skills, I'd say. So I think trying your best to be true from the first stage to the final stage. Hopefully, you were.
I think I'd second what Grace said, but I'd also kind of add, for me, when I got to the assessment centre, that's when I kind of knew that was my time to go for it. I knew that I could speak to people. I was confident in going into the group activities, and I think a bit like you're saying, Grace, kind of let yourself be competitive in some ways. Don't shy to the back because there's going to be people that want to push, and let them push because no one wants to be the bully in the group, but also show that your skills. Be confident that you've got there for a reason, and then let those skills kind of shine. Really show them and show why you're there.
I think it's really nice that you're talking about being kind to yourself, being authentic in nature. Um, and one of the things that I wanted to touch on then, going back to that, Grace, was what happens if you don't get the role? How would you have fought? Because you've gone this far, and we're talking about being kind to ourselves, being authentic, and then what happens if you don't get the role? How do you feel? How do you manage with that? Or what? How would you have managed with that
I
since you're here?
I have had that experience, or I did have that experience during my application process multiple times, and it's one of those things where it's a bittersweet experience, but you've got to pick yourself up because otherwise I wouldn't be here now. And in some ways, try not to be too harsh on yourself because the likelihood is you've gone through thousands of applicants to get into that last however many make it to the assessment center. So just because you didn't make the job, you probably did do quite well to get there. And it probably wasn't that you were a completely wrong fit. It was probably more just the fact that you weren't right on the day and you didn't fit exactly what the company was looking, or you didn't meet what they wanted. So don't be too harsh on yourself. Pick your chin up, get going, and keep going again.
Second to that, I would like to add as well, learning from the experience. Learning perhaps that day, as you said, like it wasn't your best day. Why wasn't it your best day? Like, were there some skills that perhaps didn't really come out to light? And usually, I remember one of my feedback for one of the jobs that I didn't get. He was like, always remember, you got to the stage for a reason. You just weren't able to showcase those skills on that day. If you could work on this, and after that, I remember saying, okay, this were my weak spots. Let me work on this, like practicing with other friends, other colleagues that I could find around me and be like, okay, I've noticed that I need to work on this, especially if I'm in a group setting. It doesn't come to light, but now I know the next time it does, I don't want this to be one of the things that are holding me back.
It's also adding the feedback point thing, really right, Gracie. Kind of taking it on board, and sometimes it's easy to be, oh, I didn't get the job, they didn't want me, just throwing it away. But actually, when you've calmed down and accepted you haven't got it, actually reflecting whether that was they were right or whether you think that wasn't a skill you didn't have, or it's a skill you had but didn't show properly.
What final bits of advice would you give to people watching and listening into this?
I'd say my top three would be determined, keep going, and be true to yourself. Make sure that you're A, applying to a job you want, and B, apply in the way that you want. Get there the way that shows who you are. Because if you end up in a place that you've got there without showing who you truly are, you're never going to grow in that career.
I think my advice would be first, I think I said it before, research. Like, I think that's the biggest part. And be prepared. It's not something that's just going to come and fall in your lap. You have to actually be prepared. You have to put in the work. It's easier said than done, but it does require your time and effort. So it's also another thing that you really need to invest your time in.